Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. This is Bold Voices for W. I'm going to talk about a topic that has affected so many people, and I'm going to speak from it from a perspective of an immigrant who's taken all they have and just chucked it and left their home country and immigrated to a new country looking to start big. And as I look through, the many years of being away from home, coming from a large family, I'll tell you that has been quite hard. But, focusing on your family, your immediate family, and loving what you have to do to support your family is one of the biggest things that keeps women, hopeful and alive, especially if you've got just, the little ones keeping you quite busy. So the question I have for you today is, why are most marriages suffering and often struggle after immigration, especially for immigrant men? I would love to talk about things they need to be aware of. So we're going to dig into this in a other podcast with my cousin, and this is Just Landed TV, where we talk about the stories and the resilience of immigrants and basically their true story of how they made it. But in this episode here on Bold Voices, I'd like to talk about the role shifts and the power dynamics that really happen when people immigrate and get into a new environment. And most especially African immigrants, which is where I'm going to focus my attention. I find that when we have a culture where men are expected to kind of provide and lead and be the home provider, it affects the way men see immigration, where most of them come with the idea that they're immigrating, but they want to make sure they hold down the fort back home. So you'll find men coming with their families and leaving the women to settle down, to settle in with the kids, and then they keep going back and forth. So essentially, you think you're still providing for your family because you're still coming back and forth, but then your woman is integrating and assimilating and gaining more independence. So whether it's financially or socially, when those roles are challenged, when it becomes uncertain for you, and then it's more certain for her and it's more stable for her. And now she's doing both the homework, the housework, the kids' work, and the financial support. It can be a challenging time. And when traditional roles kind of switch, it leaves some men feeling really disoriented and insecure. And I think that is a big, big problem that I find a lot of couples are facing. And most couples will navigate it by understanding that's the dynamic here. But a few people just tend to grow into that norm, while the men now have that little confidence that, the house is, she's holding down the fort, house is secure, and then he can start to explore his own passion and his own values that he brings to the table he'd like to explore. And then unrealistic expectation setting. You have big dreams. You had big dreams when you came to the country and you had a plan. Part of the plan was, when we get here, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. And now the results don't match the effort or the timeline. Now you perhaps have finally found something as the man, but your frustration sets in. You start to compare how much you made before, and you start to see how little, your wife is doing because she has the job. She's got the stability. She needs to do more. I did this all back home, and I think you need to step it up. And so the leading to blame and resentment and emotional distancing begins. And I tell you, this happens usually within the first 5 years of being an immigrant. If you survive it till then, it's all about the blame game. But I was supposed to do that and you were supposed to do this. And so the stresses now from work, from the settlement and the survival will often replace, the quality communication that we're supposed to have. And one of the biggest problems I find, I personally experience this, and I know a lot of my friends do, and generally a lot of men do this, where all of a sudden silence becomes the norm. And you don't want to speak, and defensiveness becomes the norm. And you don't want to speak, you don't want to deal with it. And every time you go back and forth, silence and defensiveness, then your connection starts to fade. And this is time where people usually get involved when you need help and you need to clarify what's going on. You're hurting, you're both going through this turmoil. And it's just not working because nobody has sat down to understand the real problem. The real problem is roles have shifted. The woman, no matter what happens, whether there's silence or if she's willing to just put up with whatever's happening, she's only grateful that she has a job and she can provide. She gets the food in, she takes the kids shopping, she's able to do school shopping, she's able to, pay some bills, and still expected to be the wife and the mom and the cook. And so in that whole cycle, if you have a woman who's willing to keep doing it and just to avoid the defensiveness or to avoid big fights, then you need to really be grateful, because she's using that focus on her kids and the whole household and she's in the process of accomplishing something. So she'll happily keep doing it without even noticing whether you're being silent or whether you're frustrated. And so it takes a while for a woman to come back to you and say, listen, isolation and lack of support is killing me. It takes her a while. It actually takes a while to feel relief from not having to be at your kid's beck and call. Like a child grows from, say, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And when they're 12 and they can handle one or two things, you'll find your wife starts to reach back to you to say, hey, now you're feeling pressure. So without the extended family and cultural community support that we're used to, all the emotional and logistical support weakens. And that puts pressure on the couple. So especially if I'm the woman, she's going to start calling out to the man to say, you know what, get it together. Please do something, or go somewhere, or let's move somewhere, or let's make this happen. And she starts to put that pressure on you. Then all of a sudden, you as a man feel the financial stress of coming to Canada or any country you've moved to. The pressure to provide is still there, even though she's doing it. You wonder why you can't pay the mortgage and still have enough to spare. You wonder why. Because most times, that feeling of inadequacy only comes when you're emotionally insecure and not communicating. And emotional security will come when you start to do more. If the man is under earning or unemployed while the woman advances, it definitely can trigger those feelings of inadequacy. But if he's emotionally secure and communicative, it can all go away, because you sit down, you talk through it, and you actually start to find ways to work together. One of the biggest problems is when the men refuse to see the woman as now more integrated and more assimilated and can help them with more information and more networking. And the man just wants to be that egoistic, boosted man who wants to figure it out on his own and finds that he can't adapt. So a failure to adapt together, when one partner adjusts faster to the new culture and norms and the others, the other feels kind of left behind and unseen, it creates that emotional gap that we see today in a lot of couples. I've gone through it, and I'm telling you, if only every man just accepted that the fact that they kept that woman in that new environment to settle down is the benefit that he can gain, even when he can't afford to be the same provider. just giving her that opportunity to pull you in and rein you in as fast as she can could actually be the glue that holds you all together. But neglecting, especially when all that is now bottled up and becomes a mental health and emotional health issue, because immigrant men suppress emotion. They suppress grief, they suppress stress, they suppress failure because that ego, they're avoiding vulnerability and missing all the signs that their marriages need attention because it's all about, you can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me that. I know what I'm doing. I know better. But you forget that this woman has integrated, assimilated, and is so well composed. The confidence that comes with what she's trying to tell you annoys you. But the truth is, she's trying to help you. So what do men really need to look out for? When you talk about emotional needs, you need to figure out how to keep up with her emotional needs and not ignore them. And we are not asking you, as women, we are not asking men to ignore their own emotional needs, but just be aware that she's got some emotional needs regardless of what she's doing, what she's offering, and be open to evolve. Be open to some of those evolving roles like vacuuming, for example, and helping with the dishes and even cooking meals that you may not have been used to. Just if she's financially obligated in some way now, you need to step up and just be that support that she was for you when you were the provider. Be open because it brings strength, and it's adaptability that brings strength. And then now avoid your prideful silence. That whole prideful silence is amazingly killing marriages today. Speak, ask, and listen. If you have something to say, ask your wife to sit down and hear you out. You've got something to say. Express yourself. Ask questions. And when she's ready to talk, please listen. Prioritizing partnership is not just in provision, right? It's in making decisions. It's in calling everything as is. Clearly, transparency is the key. But, also celebrating her growth, celebrating seeing her grow. And instead of seeing it as competition, just really be proud of her adaptation to a new environment. And if all that isn't working, I recommend all men to seek help early. When you come in and it's really, she's definitely going to see how easy it is to assimilate because she's going to have to be involved in the schools with the kids. She's going to have to be involved in shopping around and providing for the family. She has friends she's going to make, and she's got her own resources and her own colleagues and her own training. You are trying to find a footing. She's already found her footing. So you're going to have to stop seeing her as competition and start celebrating her. And in seeking help, you want to reach out for therapy, mentorship, or even trusted elders in the community that you can just befriend and ask questions. Because a man isn't one who controls, is one who grows. A man that grows is the one who wins. Thank you. This is Both Voices for You. Private reflections on what it takes to be a successful immigrant.